Everyone, or good afternoon rather. We are still two members short of quorum, but we'll go ahead and continue. I just want to thank you all for being here for this, special session where we are, going to be doing more of a bit of a work session. I really appreciate you, just being on the CAC, trying to, be a part of regionalism and helping to advise and direct the PDC and the TPO. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Mark, and then we can proceed forward with today's agenda.
Thank you, sir. So we are in order. Are there any modifications for the agenda? Anything that our members would like added? Okay. Then that brings us to the public comment period. There were no submitted. Okay. So is there anybody present who wishes to make public comment today? Okay, it appears not to be. We have the summary minutes in attachment 4. I hope everybody has had a chance to look at them. Without a quorum, we cannot approve them, but if you see any items that require amendment, modification, if your name is misspelled in particular, please call that out at this time. Okay. So we will put that on hold. And that brings us to item number 5, the Community Advisory Committee structure and purpose, presented by our staff liaison, Mr. Quan McLaurin.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So at our last meeting at Addicts Theater, we had the conversation about updating the bylaws to reflect the virtual meeting policy updates and the FOIA requirements for the Commonwealth of Virginia. As a public body, this group is subject to all public body requirements that are put forth by the Commonwealth. So what that led us on is actually the question of, okay, well, why are we a public body? What have we been able to do? And what are some ways that we can move forward? So today I want to present you with some recommendations, with some ideas. Ultimately, the CAC is yours. I act as your staff liaison, and I'm here to advise, give support where available, but I want the CAC to be yours and for you all to have ownership of it and to direct it in the direction that you'd like to see it go. So I'll go ahead and move on. So looking at the vision moving forward for the CAC, there are a couple areas that I'd like us to consider and to focus on. The determination of our focus. What does the CAC really want to focus in on? Increased engagement, representation for the region, public involvement, and advocacy for the region. So many of you may know CTAC was established back in 2010. And since then, it has expanded to become CAC, Community Advisory Committee, and to also include the HRPDC as a whole within its purview when it comes to advising on planning and transportation processes. The CAC is uniquely positioned. You all have the ability to really inform the direction of the PDC, of the TPO, of our planning and transportation practices. There is a lot of influence that can come from the CAC. So I want to look at ways that we can expand that engagement and expand that influence from the CAC. Starting with determination of focus, and we'll get a bit into that later when we start working in our work groups at our tables. Um, but I really would love to see the CAC guide the agenda and guide the focus for the group. Currently, as it stands, as a staff liaison, I'm the one who typically is creating the agenda and bringing, forth the topics for you to consider. But I'd love to see the CAC be more involved and take the charge, take the lead on what is it that you want to focus on as an advisory committee. Um, and I want you to be briefed on what are our ongoing projects. What is the PDC? What is the TPO working on? Public body status. So, a lot of the discussion that we had last meeting surrounding our virtual meetings uh, was tied directly to our status as a public body. I recommend that the CAC consider no longer designating itself as a public body and consider the restrictions that are placed upon it as a public body, such as the governance of your operations and procedures, and your meeting format, your frequency, your quorum requirements. If anyone has like specific questions related to FOIA guidance or how that applies to us, I want you to know I do have extra copies of the FOIA guidance up here at this table, and I'd be more than happy to go over any of that with you. Um, I'd love to see the CAC expand and grow. So currently, we have 30 members that can be on the CAC, but our bylaws don't necessarily state how that membership breakdown would be, or give very much guidance to what that membership might look like. So something that I believe could really help energize the CAC and move us forward is the invitation of representatives from civic leagues, community groups, involved Hampton Roads residents to join us as non-voting members and to advise us. I had the opportunity to attend the Regional Connector Studies Symposium that was right here in this room a couple weeks ago, and we heard some really great feedback from different groups. One in particular was a group for autism advocacy. And one of the important points that they brought forward was sensory needs for our design when it comes to roads and bridges, especially leading into our tunnels in the area that can be very overwhelming for some of our residents. And so I'd love to continue getting additional feedback like that from our Hampton Roads residents, and to see what we need to incorporate that we may be missing. And then also updating the membership of the CAC to be more representative of the PDC's board. So if you look underneath your agenda, there is a list of what the membership breakdown looks like for the PDC board. And you'll see that there are quite a few more members that are on the PDC board that are voting compared to the CAC. Um, with the CAC being representative of the region, I'd love for us to have our numbers and our representation for the CAC follow that as well. Membership would then be determined by a nominating committee in collaboration with the CAC chair, co-chair, and HRPDC staff liaison for the CAC. Board and mayoral approval would no longer be required. And then membership terms would adjust to 3-year terms, but appointees would take a 1-year pause in between terms. Opportunities for increased engagement. So the CAC again is uniquely positioned. You have the opportunity to really be actively involved in the planning and transportation processes. Some of the feedback that I've heard so far is that we may be presenting information to you at the tail end or once decisions have been made or briefing you on what projects we're already well ahead on. What I would love to do is have you actively involved in the projects and processes that you deem important for the region and for your communities. So I'd love to get more input from you about what projects are of interest to the CAC and what can we bring forward to you. Um, and then you can also engage with your communities and bring that information back to us. Regional representation, again, you are uniquely positioned to be that conduit, that voice. So one of the core purposes of the CAC is public involvement, is to be able to provide our Hampton Roads residents with a voice in the planning of their region. So I want to see, how we can send the CAC forward to have a voice even at our board meetings. Obviously, we have our wonderful chair here, Mark, who is representing us at the board meetings. But I don't want the CAC to be afraid to say if they're in favor of a project that we have presented, opposed, or otherwise. I'd like the CAC to have an empowered voice moving forward. Um, and then additionally, have you briefed on all public involvement opportunities, which you'll also be briefed on one very briefly after this presentation. We would still remain open to the public. All meetings, all documentation, everything would still be available to the public, and you would still be informed of all public involvement. You also now have an opportunity to advocate on behalf of the region. In front of you, you'll see that there are some booklets for the 2023 legislative agenda from the HRPDC. I know that that was brought to you after it was completed, but I'd love to see the CAC a part of the process and to even make a recommendation for an item in the legislative agenda or to put their input into the legislative agenda. There's even opportunity for the CAC to be represented in Richmond when the HRPDC is, going to our state representatives and informing them of our legislative agenda. Us as members of a governmental entity advocating for a legislative agenda is one thing, but to have our residents and our community members, our advisory committee advocating as well, just adds a different level of depth to our legislative agenda and to any other projects that we may be moving forward on. So this is recommended purely for your consideration and for you to see if this is the direction that you want the CAC to move forward in. Again, I act as your liaison, so this is my advice, my recommendation to you. But you as a CAC have the ability to decide how you would like to move forward, what you want the CAC to look like. And I hope by the end of our work groups today, we have more of an idea of where the CAC can be for the future. I'm sure some of you have some questions. I'd be more than happy to take any of those at this time. Yes, in the back.
What's prompting, is there something prompting this change or is it why?
Yeah, absolutely. So this actually came from the conversation we had at the last CAC meeting where we were talking about virtual meetings and how constraining it is for the CAC and its operations. Uh, if we move forward with adopting the HRPDC and HRTPO boards, FOIA, uh, their public meeting policies that are modeled after the Commonwealth's FOIA policies. I know that's a mouthful. Sorry. Um, then even then, we could have members who meet virtually, but maybe their presence doesn't count toward a quorum, or their vote doesn't count toward the business at hand, and that's not necessarily what we believe to be productive for the group. Um, Something such as additional virtual engagement may be a way to really get more members joining the CAC and get more engagement throughout our region. Yes. Oh, yeah.
What is the Richmond area or the Northern Virginia equivalent of what we are? Are they, what are they doing, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that they do have a version of a CAC. I'm not quite as familiar with their CACs. I do know that there are some other CACs throughout the nation that have really been steering their TPOs and really helping to model um, what transportation projects will be taking place. For instance, over at the Puget Sound, the Seattle PDC, their CAC is being given a budget to determine which projects they would like to move forward on, and then what phase they would like to move forward on with those projects. And eventually, I'd love to see the CAC potentially move into that same direction, being able to be an active and involved part of the transportation and planning process. Yes, absolutely.
It would be really helpful to me if. Sorry. Is it on? There. Okay. It would be really helpful to me is if, as a group, we are informed on the topics that our leaders will vote on in
Mhm.
the upcoming meetings, so that I can provide my advice and counsel to the people that appointed me to this CAC, and also so that they will have the opinions of me and possibly the group when they go to vote.
Absolutely. I do want to clarify, you won't be expected to vote on this item today. We won't actually, put forth a vote on any of this until a later date, if you so choose. Again, this is within your hands. This is your ability to decide as a CAC what you would like to do with it. Yes.
Um, I like the idea. Basically, what we're trying to do is democratize the process. And by that, I mean, we're making sure that access to the process, that everyone can have input, that it maximizes the benefits of the community and such. It's not top down, but bottom up.
Mhm.
It's not led by government, but led by community. It's driven by community. It has the community focus and input as a priority and an imperative and such. And when we think about regional priorities first, from a community perspective, and not from a political or government perspective. So we have the power now with this process to say that, hey, poverty is the number one issue, and we need to focus on that, or education and such. But it gives us more power, more authority, more voice. And truly, what we're trying to do is maximize the benefits to the community through this process. Now, we're not doing that. It's like, we're not bringing their voices up,
Mhm.
listening, and acting on what they see as priority. The priority being set from the table here and we push it down. I'm all for it.
Thank you. And to your same point, I want the CAC to lead this charge, lead the CAC. I don't want to, determine your focus or your goals for you. I'm here as, an advisor, as a support, and to get you the resources that you need to be successful. But I want you to feel empowered to be the CAC and to advise the TPO, to advise the PDC, and even beyond that, lend your recommendations as the community advisory committee, even to our Commonwealth when how it pertains to Hampton Roads. An example of that right now is there is a passenger rail. Um, there's a passenger rail plan right now that is being prioritized, looking at connecting Richmond and Raleigh. But I've heard a lot of Hampton Roads residents mention that they would love to see more passenger rail in this area. Um, right now, we're not being considered as highly as the Richmond to Raleigh. So if a group such as a CAC were to come forward and say, in addition to uh, our representatives here from the organization, this is something our community wants, that's a different and an added layer of weight to a matter or an issue, and having your voices heard. Or if that's not what you want, being able to say, actually, we understand that our representatives want this, but we understand that our community members don't want this. And so we're putting forth that we do not want this. This gives you more power. Absolutely.
And I really like the idea that I think it will encourage our community members to then come to this meeting as either and join as either non-voting members or come and speak and share their opinions so that, like you said, we can collect the community opinions from below and share those with our elected leaders. I mean, that's part of the process that's really important. And then they'll do what they need to do. They always do. They're not going to always agree with us, and that's okay. But it'd be good for us to be able to at least, share our ideas and have members of our communities share their ideas, encourage more of them to actually participate in the process.
Absolutely. Oops. Yes.
I just wanted you to walk me through the process, because you mentioned that we would pivot from being a public entity then to a non-public.
Yes.
How does that work, given that we're appointed by a public entity?
Yes. So the CAC, to put it briefly, basically, the CAC needs to exist, but it does not necessarily need to exist as a public body. Currently, with it being designated as a public body, we run into issues such as virtual meetings, and all of our proceedings, all of our or not all of our proceedings, but a lot of our proceedings are informed by how public bodies are regulated within the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so what I'm hoping to do is kind of remove some of those constraints, so that the CAC can move forward as it wishes to.
Yeah, I get that part, but how do we do that?
Oh,
Because
yes.
we're already public, so how do we go back to being non?
Oh,
That's my question.
Oh, absolutely. That's completely up to you. You decide that you don't want to be a public body anymore. You take a vote on it. You would need to update your name to remove advisory out of it. It would you can be advocacy, but advise if you have advisory in your name, then it would need to remain a public body. So you would just need to vote on that, and decide as a group that is where you would like to move forward. And I could help you with the step-by-step process, and also send out, any materials you may need for what that would look like. Absolutely. Would that be helpful to send that out to the group?
I think so.
Okay.
I can't speak for the group, but certainly I think it'd be helpful so we can make an informed decision, make sure that we cross all, check every box to make sure there's no blowback in terms of making this transition.
Absolutely. Yes. Right here. Yeah. Right here.
Okay. Dovetailing with what Dulcino was saying, right now, we're a public body, and the way I found out about it was posted on our city's website, and I got my resume and application into a database, was pointed by city officials, as I'm sure that's how the process works. How would it work?
Yeah.
If
So
we become private or non-public, how would potential new members find out about it?
yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, even though we wouldn't be designated as a public body, we would still, as far as our proceedings go, still make everything open to the public. We'd still make sure that our meeting minutes are documented and published. As we are right now, we're live streaming. We continue to live stream to make sure that the public has access to our proceedings here, especially since the CAC is representing the communities in the region. As far as applications go, we could still make sure that they're publicly posted, make sure that the information is still on our website. We don't foresee any major changes to the advertisement of the CAC or its operations. We don't plan to adjust any of that. And again, I want you all to be a part of that as well. I don't want to, operate completely on your behalf without your input. So, I'll take this hand back here and I'll be right back to you.
If we do
go along this path and we're no longer advisors, but we're advocates,
Mhm.
would we be recognized by the higher ups as a legitimate group or whatever? And say an example, someone out in some area who's going to have a road put through their neighborhood, all of a sudden gets upset and gets 100 people organized, and now we have competition. It's not just us advocating for something, it's that group advocating for their little specific thing, whatever it may be. So again, how would we be recognized as the local advocates, whoever, for Hampton Roads?
Yeah.
Without another competing organization getting upset, getting angry, and forming their own organization?
Absolutely. Those are two great questions. I'll start with the first one as far as recognition by the board. The group would still be recognized. When the CAC originally, CTAC, Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee, was first put together, it was put together because of a recommendation from the Federal Highway Administration and VDOT in a review. So this group must exist, as far as a way to show that we are engaged in the public involvement process. Uh, your validity as a group, your impact as a group, I think, can only grow from here. I don't foresee it being shadowed in any way. As far as the other group names, we can always look at potential names that won't run into that issue. There are a couple that we were looking at that could work. We'd be more than happy to present those to the group. Yes, absolutely.
I'm not as familiar with this as I would like to be.
Okay.
Because obviously afterwards, we would still be a public body from one definition of the word public body, because we would be part of the HRPDC TPO, but not a public body within the certain statute that you're referring to that requires certain rights. So there's, within my mind, and then what type of body we would technically be afterwards, and the differences and advantages and disadvantages aren't completely clear to me yet.
Okay.
Based on some questions I'm hearing, I'm not sure they're clear to all of us, just because I don't have the background for it. So more education in that direction would really be helpful to me.
Absolutely. So, just by a show of hands from the group, would it be helpful to everyone if I, gave you some information on the differences between the public body, non-public body, what that could look like for you? Okay, absolutely. I can provide that to you. Yeah, that's Greg.
Can I join you up there for 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. I'll just introduce myself quick. My name is Greg Rotenworth. I'm the Deputy Executive Director of the PDC. A lot of the changes that happened with public body, some of the committees on the PDC and the TPO side engaged in this earlier, and I certainly appreciate a lot of the questions that y'all are giving Quan. Fantastic questions. And I just want to provide maybe an example or two of what has happened in the past that will provide some insight. We have one body that's called the Regional Environmental Committee. It used to be a public meeting, used to be a public body, advisory role to the PDC board, much like the CAC, right? As Quan explained, there's a lot of requirements that go around being a public body that constrict your ability to do certain things. So when COVID came and we recognized that it was really difficult to meet with regional environmental group, we stripped the public meeting requirements from that, and the efficacy of this group grew significantly, because suddenly you could have meetings that took place, hybrid meetings. You could expand the capacity of the group. You could expand the reach of the group. And with respect to our board, what our board, the Planning District Commission Board, the HRTPO Board, what they're most interested in is, the membership, who's attending meetings, and how the group is convened and how they're collectively getting together. So that to them is the most important thing. So in terms of this group's ability to impact the board, as Kwan said, it has the opportunity to really grow if that's where you all want to go. It has done so in other boards. We have Director of Utilities Committee, Regional Environmental Committee. We have other committees, AHAC, through emergency management, that we have been able to see the efficacy of these groups grow and not constrained by the public requirement acts, because now they have the freedom to meet electronically. They have the freedom to include other membership. So hopefully that provides some context of how this has worked in the past with the PDC. But I'll be happy to answer any questions you have of how it's worked in the past. I've been here 20 some odd years, so I've seen it kind of go through some phases. But I just wanted to provide that context for y'all.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Greg.
So Kwan, whether
Yes.
it's public or non-public, we still will be in compliance with the feds, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That's because, as you said, what birthed this whole thing was that they said that we need to do more community engagement.
Absolutely.
So going nonprofit does not disqualify us from being in compliance, correct?
It does not.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I would be more than happy to make sure that, again, with that documentation, that you also had that as well. I want you all, with whatever decision you make, to be well informed and to feel comfortable with that decision. Yes.
Is the TTAC and the FTAC, are you making similar recommendations to them, or are they already private?
Those are public bodies.
Okay.
I don't have purview over those groups, so I'm not, I can't speak to their status as a public body. But I can look into that for you. Yes.
If we were to decide to go non-public,
Mhm.
would that alleviate us meeting as a body?
So you wouldn't have to meet in person. You could meet virtually, but we would still want to have a quorum of the group in order to conduct business. So whether that be in person or virtually, we still would want to have a quorum of group members.
So quickly here, what we're advocating for here is some good old fashioned coalition building, basically. Everybody comes to the table and has a voice, participates, voices that amplify, voices that participate actively in the process and such. We're looking at that sort of entity, and also that sort of entity can take action on its own. It can set out its own advocacy agenda. It can go out its own funding resource. It can bring in its own technical experts and specialists and such. So we'll be operating completely separate from the existing organization here, with a whole lot more freedoms to have a whole lot more impact as well.
Absolutely. And I'd love, again, if you're going to decide your own goals and agendas moving forward, to be able to then ask. I'll use the rail study example. If rail is something that you're interested in, to then move forward and say, okay, well, let's go get our experts from the TPO in here who have done rail studies, who may be aware of the most recent ones, to look at if it's possible to conduct another one, and to give you those briefings, give you that information so that you know how you want to proceed forward in your advocacy. Yes, absolutely.
Hi, so to the comment that was made, I'm sorry, by the deputy executive director here, I'm just curious, for bodies that have actually gone through this, it may be helpful to be able to speak maybe to one of those
Okay.
entities, just to understand that transition and how they saw, an after actions or lessons learned from the benefits they had as a public body to a non-public body. Because it sounds like some of our concerns are probably in the implementation piece. Like how then do you control, meeting, who's in attendance, how it's governed, it doesn't become unruly. And again, that another body doesn't, self-designate itself because they don't necessarily agree with the format we've adopted as then the representative to the region on these types of, or to the PDC and the TPO on these types of issues. So I think it might be helpful to
Okay.
have be able to have a conversation with maybe someone that's done this before,
Okay.
if possible. Thanks.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and I'll look into that for you. Absolutely. Yes.
I'd like to second her comment. That was one of my primary thoughts as well, is if other groups have already gone through this, we could certainly learn a lot and understand from them. Another concern is currently the HRPDC TPO puts a lot of resources into making this happen. Staff resources, rooms, recordings, agendas. It's extremely helpful having that and professionals that are working full time make sure this happens and it's done well. And so a concern is how does that happen post change? How is it funded post change, and how is it organized without a full? Does the staff still do that, or is it not do that anymore?
Absolutely. So as far as staff support that you receive from the PDC, all of the support that you currently receive from the PDC, you would still continue to receive that. I would still be your staff liaison, and in that fashion, as far as like room reservations, etc. We would still be able to make sure that occurred. Absolutely. Yes.
Yes, as far as the virtual meetings, don't we have something in the legislative package that we're asking, Hampton Roads is asking the legislature to do along that line? And what would we hope to gain from that?
Yeah. So the PDC has asked for the state elected officials to reconsider their current FOIA practices. However, just being transparent, there is a, a, a media lobby that has advocated against that, and so it does not look as though that may be the case, that those policies may change.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if we don't have any additional questions, I'll make sure that you all get that information. Again, today, this is just for your consideration, for you to think about. And as a CAC, you can, as we move into our work groups, we can discuss, what do you want the CAC to look like? What do you want this to move forward as? Before I transition us to our work groups, I'm going to go ahead and let Greg Grutendorf come up here and give a quick, yes, Chair?
So it appears that we may have critical mass.
Okay.
Would you do a new nose count and see if we can get the minutes approved?
Absolutely. Let me just, thank you.
I thought I saw 2 additional people. Okay, so a quorum has been established. If you turn back in your packet to item number 4, summary minutes.
Mr. Chair, move for approval.
Okay, unless any of the people who walked in a little bit late, any changes to the minutes that need to be made? Okay, so we have a motion, and who was the second? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Yes. All in favor, aye, please. Aye. All opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved.
All right.
Contact.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and have Mr. Grutendorf come up and give a quick briefing on a public notice.
Thanks, Quan. I had asked Quan if he can give me just a second to talk to you all. I understood that people want to know about public hearings, public meetings that are taking place through the PDC, especially the Citizens Advisory Committee, and it caught my attention. We've got a whole series of public meetings that are coming out starting this month and going all the way through August. And so I just wanted to make you all aware of what's going on. Has anybody here heard of the Wheelabrator facility? Waste to energy facility. One of the interesting things that happens is the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission is actually in charge of the solid waste planning unit. The state designated the PDC to be the regional solid waste management planning agency. So we plan for solid waste on the south side, the 8 jurisdictions on the south side of Hampton Roads. And when we were notified that the Wheelabrator facility was going to close, the owners of it have decided to close it. What that does is it triggers a major amendment to the regional solid waste management plan. If there's a major amendment to the plan, we have to go through a public hearing process in each of the localities that are affected by this major amendment. And because all 8 localities on the south side use the Wheelabrator facility, we have to hold a public hearing in each of those 8 localities in order to make that major amendment. So that's what we're going to be doing from half June all the way through, it is half June all the way through the end of August. We're holding a series of hearings in each locality to provide the public an opportunity to comment on the closure of the Wheelabrator facility. And as I told Quan, the problem with this is we have no control of a private company closing their plant. There's nothing we can do. They're going to close. And so in notifying the public that this is going to happen, there is going to be there's 2 major amendments to the regional solid waste management plan. The second amendment is the expansion of the landfill in Suffolk. So there will be a public hearing held in Suffolk on the expansion of the landfill, and that'll be held the end of August. But I wanted to give you all an opportunity to hear that these series of public hearings would be taking place in each of the localities, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you guys have any.
With the closure of that facility, what does that do with solid waste disposal? What's that pushing that?
So I should
For
have probably
capacity.
explained that. So what the Wheelabrator facility does is it takes in waste and it burns it to create energy that gets used at the military uses it in Portsmouth. And so essentially what that does is now it diverts waste that was going to create energy for the shipyard, and it gets dumped in the landfill in Suffolk.
They have a similar facility, I'm sure you know, that Langley uses on the peninsula.
Yes.
Or at least it's my understanding that that's the case.
Yes, it was unfortunate. I think the facility has been, kind of limping along in years, so it's kind of run its course. The closure will probably be 2024, 2025 when it actually closes. But the facility, as I understand, is going to require so much maintenance to keep it going in its current capacity that it's no longer feasible to do so. And on top of that, the military has changed their energy source, so they're developing their own energy, so they'll no longer be requiring energy from the Wheelabrator, which is now it's called the wind facilities.
Yeah, I walk right by the facility every day practically, trying to get over to Jordan Bridge, and there was a fire there and such.
Yes.
Basically took out the conveyor system and such. And they're still doing something there in terms of waste of energy, because the trucks are still coming in and they're bringing it up to, I guess, a deck there, and they're incinerating it there and such. But it seems as though the main boilers are offline, but maybe some auxiliary boilers are online and such. But besides that, I begin to think about waste management in the Hampton Roads area, and I seldom hear the terms circular economy come up. In terms of not only waste of energy, but taking waste and repurposing it as well. And other cities use the term life cycle and such. For instance, in Atlanta, there's a large facility called Life Cycle Building Center and such. And it takes in waste basically and such, but it repurposes it and such. And that diverts trash away from the landfill, materials away from the landfill. It makes a more sustainable economy and a more circular economy as well. So I'm not sure where that fits into the Hampton Roads plan here. So perhaps we can talk about that at the hearing.
Certainly, I mean, that's part of a much larger conversation, and we can get with Quan if you want to hear a lot more about it. But essentially, when you're talking about regional solid waste management, right, there's many aspects of this. This gets really involved. It's funny that you brought up that term, because literally an hour ago I was on a phone call with somebody from North Carolina who's going to come talk to some of our localities about how we can engage in this. But the recycling efforts that are underway, right, we're really trying to move those forward. The recycling efforts are up to the localities. The coordination that takes place is somewhat fragmented, and we'd love to see that come together. But there is, on the peninsula, we have regional solid waste management plan for several localities through the Virginia Peninsula Public Service Authority, and then that's a little bit different on the south side, so it's not all covered under the PDC. It's a little bit fragmented, but acting regionally, we can certainly get some benefits. And the reason that the closure of this Wheelabrator plant triggers a major amendment to the solid waste management plan is because you're moving down the hierarchy from waste to energy, and now it's just becoming refuse in the landfill. And when you do that, it triggers this major amendment. So, certainly we would prefer to be creating energy instead of putting this in the landfill, but a private facility closing makes it difficult to do that. But we are certainly looking for other options to improve processes in Hampton Roads throughout the region. And just what you're talking about, those conversations are taking place.
And quickly here, there's some environmental justice implications as well, because the incinerator was located right beside a low-income community. I mean, just 1,500 to 2,000 feet away, from Craddock and Newport and the other facilities there. So it was spewing out emissions from the burning of waste. So now that's shutting down, but at the same time, we're hauling the haul waste out to Suffolk. That landfill is located in a low-income community. Now we're gonna have to expand that because we're shutting down the incinerator. So, justice issues on both sides.
Certainly, and the environmental justice issues associated with landfills and refuse there's a long history there. And that's one of so when we have the public hearing process in Suffolk, one of the components of that, of course, the environmental justice issues that take place with the expansion of landfill. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks, Travis. Mike Sawchuk in Suffolk also, so I'm very interested in this topic, and I look forward to the scheduled meetings being emailed out, and hope we'll attend some of those. We had a similar problem, back in Michigan where I was growing up, and the big issue was NIMBY, right? Nobody wants it in their backyard. Last summer, I was able to go up to Scotland, visit where my wife's family's from. The kids are able to see, how their grandparents live over there. And one of the interesting things was, just before we left, actually, they started the trash worker strike, and the city rapidly filled up and became really gross. But before that, they have a requirement that you have your solid waste trash in one can, you have your food scraps in a separate can that's sealed, you have your recyclables separated out, and they actually go around and ticket people on their ability to comply with the waste requirements. While it's kind of a tedious task, and there are regions that have, hey, fill the blue bin, fill the green bin. We're cool. And even to the point where I believe Chesapeake, has Chesapeake turned back on their recycling at all?
So Chesapeake has options available on the website. They do not have the door-to-door pickup that they used to have. That's one of the things that we'd like to see Chesapeake return to having that option. So it's certainly one of the things we're working on. But right now you can have a subscription service in Chesapeake to pick up your recycling.
Well, that's good. I'd like to see more recycling, I think is the bottom line. And I think I agree with Gary, circular economy, definitely a more sustainable plan. Going to places like Boston that have a better, I guess, regional setup. It improves everything for everyone.
Certainly, and I'll say this. I mean, before I was tasked with looking at recycling, I used to throw as much as I could in the recycling bin, thinking I was doing great things for the environment. And then once I got more educated on what we can and can't recycle, I realized that I was doing much more damage than good. So it is an education process, and I think it's a cultural collective process in Hampton Roads that we would, as a planning district commission, would really like to see that improved. I'm hardly the best person to talk to about this. So if you all are interested in this topic, I would encourage you to talk to Kwan, and he could set you up with somebody in our staff who's much better at me talking about recycling.
Thank you. It's interesting having my Portsmouth colleague, Mr. Harris, and Mr. Salchuk in Suffolk sitting opposite of each other while this gets moved from one NIMBY concern to another NIMBY concern. But I thought of what Mr. Harris brought up about less items being burned. There hopefully is a positive, and especially if it's an old facility, that it might improve some air quality around that locality, which is one positive, maybe not overall. But another thing that's not entirely clear in my mind, because solid waste means different things to waste management than it does from your sanitary sewer people. So which solid wastes are we talking about? Both types of
Garbage.
Garbage.
We're
from
talking
your
about
street.
garbage.
Okay. Because
Yes.
garbage from your street with all the stuff that's in it going up a smokestack can be really bad for localities and air quality and cancer rates, I think.
Yeah, and
So-
unfortunately, I can't speak. I mean, as far as I know, that there are pretty stringent requirements that have been increased in recent years. And if you listen to our friends at the TPO, the air quality in Hampton Roads certainly has improved over where it was a decade and 2 decades ago. Outside the last few days with Canada smoke, I know Mark's been giving me grief on that, but the air quality here has improved. But I can't speak specifically to what the if that's an issue at the Wheelabrator facility.
I don't believe everybody understands that Canada anymore.
So the smoke that has been coming down here from the last couple of days is due to wildfires that took place in Canada and have blown all the way down here.
And your relationship,
And my relationship, I am Canadian, so
that was the missing.
it's my smoke, sorry.
My question is, are we going to invade Canada to stop the wildfires? Like, what are we going to do? Where's the lawsuit, or where's the invasion force?
I'm sure this was done. I just wanted to point out, at NASA Langley, we have like a waste treatment facility that we have there where we take the waste and kind of turn it into steam. I'm guessing that's something that's been looked at since it's here locally in the region.
That's what the Wheelabrator facility did
That
as
is
well.
what it was. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, well, I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them over to Kwan, and I'll be happy to address them.
All right, thank you. We can go ahead and move over to the action request and work groups. All right, so I move that we, for the remainder of this session, move on to Robert's Rules of Order Light, so that you can collaborate here at your tables, and I'll go ahead and walk through that with you in a moment. But I wanted to go ahead and bring that forward to the group.
Yes, so we are moving into item 6, the work session, and we had a conversation before this meeting regarding how this interplays with our normal governance process. So as the chair, I have discretion in terms of the application of Robert's Rules of Order. And it is my intent with unanimous consent that we would interact in a group setting, everybody be polite to each other, don't talk over each other, but generate a lot of ideas. So I'm looking for healthy, vigorous conversation and respectful. So with that, any objection to proceeding on, under those conditions? Okay.
So no trash talking.
Just keep it at the table. Okay, so if you turn to your last page in the agenda packet, what you'll see there are a couple of questions there at the bottom. The top, we've kind of gone over the history of the CAC. A portion of this is pulled directly from your bylaws, that middle portion there. And so what I really want to ask you all to consider here at your table are these questions that are in front of you. And ask yourself, what are the strengths and weaknesses of our region? How does the CAC wish to fulfill its mission of providing the PDC and TPO with the community's viewpoint on regional matters? What level of involvement does the CAC wish to have with ongoing projects from the PDC and TPO? What types of matters does CAC wish to be briefed on? As a member of the CAC, what do you hope to accomplish during your tenure? And then what does a successful CAC look like? I know that that is a lot to ask you to speak to. I want to give you until 1:40. Does that sound good? And that'll allow you to all collaborate at your tables and work through those questions together. I'll be in the room walking around if you have any questions or if you would like any further insight.
And how about these flip charts?
Oh, yes, thanks, Mark. So you'll also notice that you have flip charts there beside your table, and you also have markers. If anyone needs additional markers, let me know. After we're done with the meeting, I'm going to go ahead and compile those flip charts from your answers to these questions, and then that'll be included as part of our documentation from today. And that'll help us, get a better idea of what direction the CAC would like to move into. Thank you.
And we will circulate.
Oh, okay.
Scott, I'm happy to ride on the board if you guys want those. Or if you want this, your handwriting may be better than mine. Can I send you email your thoughts first and you on that? Oh, really? Involvement in what types matters. Go ahead. How you doing? This actually is first meeting. Oh. I'm Jim Bowie.
I've been on a couple of years. Yeah. I've seen you at other meetings where we just never sat next to each other with the assignment. And by the way, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And they rotated. So you might find yourself sitting next to me. The next meeting you might be sitting next to Gary or Justina. Addicts, theater. Exactly. Right. You were at the shipyard? Yeah. Okay.
Just coming with the moving here in 2019, I mean, my wife, she goes, I feel like she's in the safest place in It's a good thing. We're not worried about somebody bombing. Actually, for a while, I don't know if it's the second congressional district. It's just learning.
Well, but you're not doing it.
Right, my wife's on the board, but she doesn't know. I think the strength of this, you don't really explain. There's so many different administration groups here that, you know, this is the most festival place I've ever been in my entire life. Every meeting, every city, there's a festival going on in every genre, whatever. And I think that's a strength. I mean, you get bored here, that's your problem. Yeah. You cannot get bored. You know, but the things to do, I mean, there's always something to do. All you gotta do is go on Facebook and event page, you see everybody. Yeah, no, seriously, that's what it is. Culture, personal culture. Very high. Always something going on. It could be every single one.
I just wanted to give everyone a 20-minute mark, 20 minutes left.
I'm glad you didn't say there's no good. Right. Yes, that's true. When you live around here, you just they're very interactive. I would say conversely, another meeting that we tend to stay in our own bubble here in terms of engaging. You know, even though we have a lot of with each other. So that's one. So it's a cutthroat way. And I've often heard, they have tried to attract, occasionally, talks about, they'll have somebody come in who wants to put a larger arena in the ocean. There's a conversation about, usually I think it's a basketball team, can we attract a large, a team. Unfortunately, one of those reasons because we do have 7 cities. Right. If it was all one thing, we would be a metropolitan statistical area of almost 2 million people. Well, they do have. That would vote as groups. Right. Exactly. Well, but we don't have a combined borough. But I think the city, to me, is probably one of the main things. Like that, we do have separate cities that function as their own people, entities, and that we don't market the region. Right? There's no marketing. Right? And it's hard to system, but we can't kind of present it on a way where people go, man, yes, Hampton Roads, or whatever you call it. That's right there. I've already called it Hampton Road. They call it South. Yeah, exactly. Never heard none of it. Yeah. So whatever it is. I hear the 757. I'll be honest with you, I'm over there. We moved out of the 804 and it became the 757. I was going to sign the episode. I was like, wait a minute, they're taking our area codes? Yeah. Right. Are we getting another one? Oh, maybe. I don't know. There's another one. I mean, I remember a time being a Navy guy when it was call and yeah. And I was like, it's further to Virginia Beach geographically than it is. And when we across the water, what is considered a long distance call. Yeah, and also I think another part of the thing is that there's no regional convention in business. Meaning there's nothing really from a regional, from a national standpoint, projects all of the good of every city that suffer. That's different. No, actually, he has a good point. There's a peninsula chamber, but there's also a south side. A chamber is different than I'm talking about a convention and visitors bureau, different than a chamber. Now we have stuff like the design that deals with economic development of for the region and attracting businesses to the region. But I'm talking about all these good things that we have on the flip side in terms of all poverty. There's nothing that the stuff Facebook events that says, here's what's going on in this region, and promotes the region as an entity. Because there is this.
Just giving a reminder, we have about 13 minutes left,
But who? Well, everybody here likes Just put that on there. Like transportation was, like yesterday. And. Right there, right there. We were like, I didn't have to drive in the hour. Just go all the way around Monterey back. It's better with 460 is 58. Yeah. 58 is 4 lanes. It's not interstate access. My 64 is at least 4 lanes. Yeah, so you're head out to the area. So you get 95. Yeah, 85 is south. Having Louisiana family and stuff, I drive that way.
Make sure they're on
Yeah,
side.
well, 460 takes you up that way.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah. It's true, ahead of time.
What question are we on?
Tickers up. Anything else? You good? All right, so question 4, type of matters. That's it.
I guess my question to the conversation, the idea of, you know, I was thinking primary reason for public body to be established to serve the public interest. So, you know, that's my mind. So I think there was concern with you. Putting the hybrid meeting thing aside. Well, just whoever else said. So thank you, Mark. You can vote. Do anything the state legislature gives them permission. Whereas a home rule state, the Commonwealth, I think it kind of has something to do with it. Where the home rule state says localities can do things as a locality unless the state expressly says you can't. Yeah. It's a way of looking at it. As long as here, if the state says you can do it, then you have permission to do it. But in, say, Texas, as a home rule state, unless the state says you can't do it, then you can pursue it. So, so for the FOIA stuff, we would have to get permission from the state to address those things. That's a whole nother level of stuff I don't want to. I like to do that. Yeah, I'm ready. Oh, okay. Yeah, and then there's a big, huge difference between five versus half.
If your paper is becoming too much, these are posted, so you can put them on the wall.
I wasn't necessarily in favor of the word citizen. All right, let's start. Citizen.
Yeah, they say that.
I don't agree with it. More like chapter 6. And where they live, and where they work. So what I'm hearing is very
What's your legacy? Right here.
Okay. Actually, there was a time early on, you probably remember this, they were talking about speaker bureau. Yeah, because they, your predecessor, Kendall, that's it, Kendall. We were talking about a speaker bureau and, I think it was the vice chair. I remember having lunch with it, but they bought it. And I have to go back and look at his name, but they were talking about that, but I didn't have anybody asking me. I would just have conversations with people in the neighborhood or sure, they were, usually if they were complaining about something.
Well, that's true. You're right.
They'll say, you know, they're gonna have that too. There might be a toll on it, you know, it'll work. We're on that. Oh, we're still on two? Okay. Strengths and weaknesses, we went very in depth.
Well, I asked.
All right, you're at the 5-minute mark. Go ahead and look around your table and see who you want to be your speaker. All right, as we go around and we give the salient points from your discussion.
Next meeting, we'll get you lunch.
And also,
I got you. No, this is true. Well, me. Was Bob out of town today?
He is a triple director.
Oh, is he? And also,
On both sides of the on both sides of the region. So this morning he's in the peninsula, this afternoon he's in Virginia Beach. Yeah, so he's on.
yeah. So, thank you for doing that. You do have
If you have to leave early, and you still want to give feedback, you I'd be happy to, still take those comments as well. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, well, that's, all right. And citizens around the
Oh, wow. Well, then you get to make sure that your points are.
As well as, skill sets. So, okay, so, yeah, it's very important you say that, you say that.
Did you finish number 6?
It's done.
Oh, check it out.
We're ready.
Wait, no power. I'm not even a sports fan, but.
There's no buts.
Okay,
There's no buts.
They're
They're turning spots immediately.
Well, listen, I'll let you get to it, Mark. Mark, you may have to eliminate all your Cowboys fans. You may have to eliminate all of your Cowboys fans.
And they better not lie on the application. What do you want to say?
It's gonna be an extra,
Yeah, that's right. Who is your favorite sports team?
And it's gonna be highlighted.
That's right. Wait, that's the first question. Who's your team?
yeah,
All right. What's your age, skill sets? What else? Anything else that says-
Oh, my goodness.
Better watch Well, I want this in the bylaws. Better watch it.
Better watch it. Actually,
How do I sign?
how about I put my.
All right, we good.
All right. I've loved walking around the room and hearing the conversations. I just heard such wonderful thought generation. If we could, with our last time remaining today, just go table by table, being mindful that we have about 20 minutes left. And just have everyone present their salient points. And then we can close out I'll let the chair close out the meeting for us. Scott, would you be willing to start us out? Oh, do you mind using the mic? I'm sorry.
All right. The rest of my team left, so I got stuck presenting, but we only got through strengths and weaknesses, and I think we agreed on one other thing. We think that, I call this the Cali of the East Coast, California, because we kind of have the same weather except the humidity, but we have the beach, and then in less than 3 hours, you can be in the mountains skiing. And we have great water recreation and seafood, and being from New England, that's really that's a big step for me saying that. With strength of having one of the largest ports on the East Coast, our education, both our primary education and our college education, we have a lot of great schools around here. The military is a strength, and it's a strength, I believe, because the diversity of the military. We have just every branch here in the area, and it also brings the population here, and it's great for the economy of the area. And then the diversity, and by that we were talking about different things, the cultural diversity for one, and that culture brings in. It was brought up in the conversation that we have so many festivals and events, and that everything is different. And if you want to go get something to eat from some foreign country, there's a restaurant in this area to get it. It's just incredible. On the flip side, we have some weaknesses in the area. I heard some other people talking about this. No major sports teams. I don't know if that's a con. I kind of like the fact that you can pay $20 a ticket and go watch a AAA baseball game. And the other thing is diversity bubbles. While we have great diversity, it was brought up that a lot of times they congregate in their own cliques or bubbles. So we have to break that so we can each benefit from the diversity. The separate cities thing. Yeah, we're a region, but everything is run by separate cities, and there's no marketing for our region. There's also no regional convention of business bureau to market what our area has to offer for not only business, but for people to come in for business events and conventions. Oh, and then there's only one way in and one way out if you're coming from Richmond. We started working on mission, but got sidetracked. And the only thing I have for our involvement as a body is more. I think we should have more involvement with and get more information from both of those groups so we can make better decisions. All right, I yield back my time.
Oh, thank you so much. I actually, one of the things that I really just appreciate about what you put up there is the marketing for our region. We live in a vacation area, and we have so much at our fingertips. And we're also Virginia's #1 vacation destination. So I love that you mentioned that. Would the table back here in the corner like to go next? Mhm. Yeah.
All right, can you hear me? Okay, so we went through some of our strengths. We said that the access to waterways, whether it's recreational, a lot of sports fishing around here, commercial, we have a commercial fisheries port in Hampton, also down in Virginia Beach, charters. Shipbuilding, yards, repairing ships, refitting ships, building submarines. High concentration of engineers between NASA and the Air Force and the Navy and cyber, all the different wheelhouses of IT that consider ourselves engineers. There's tons of engineers in this area. And we also got plenty of civil engineers helping build like the HRBT expansion, et cetera. History and tourism, very big around here. We have the Jamestown settlement and lots of tourism everywhere else too. It's a veteran friendly area. Part of why I stayed here after I retired in 2019 is the Hampton Roads area has grant programs for veterans to get all your cybersecurity certs. So you could be hired and work in that field post-military. Weaknesses. #1, we said, was traffic. We can get stuck at a tunnel or a bridge for hours because there was an accident, because someone got stupid. But wealth inequality, we said, was #2. There's some regions that are definitely a little more affluent than others. And one of those regions that Gary was pointing out is by the trash burning facility. And we're going to see that, by every dump, every place that the trash is congregated, this kind of turns into a real estate boon. No one wants to live there. No one wants to buy there. Lack of significant collaboration across the 7 cities. Oh, lack of regional government authority. I guess these two kind of go hand in hand, right? Because we talked about New York City, the 5 boroughs. They started separate a long time ago, and now we all recognize it as New York City. And Hampton Roads, I don't know if we're ready for the Hampton Roads regional government. You know, who's the mayor of Hampton Roads? But significant collaboration needs to happen across the 7 cities if we're going to get overall better with everything from, you know, gang problems, shootings at the beach, metal detectors for our schools, whatever else, you know, that's regional. That's things that I feel like if our police forces were working together, you could get a little more work done, you know, finding and eliminating problems. What does successful CAC look like? We kind of jumped to the end because we were getting short on time. Leading, not following. Our CAC, for the few meetings I've been to so far, have been, you know, we approve the minutes. We say, hey, we did a great job last time, and all right, what's next? We have a few voices, we have some great presentations, and that's good. But as a CAC, we need to have skin in the game. We need to be leading and having representative membership for our cities, for our regions, maximizing benefits to our communities, and being respectable and influential in our communities. So if that's involving ourselves with the media or getting op-eds written, something to, you know, help make this really more in your face for our communities. All right, thanks.
Thank you. All right, could we have the other table in the back present next?
All right, and so we started off with our strengths. Some of them are similar to what has already been discussed. We have the ports, military and government facility. We have a steady business climate because of that, and employment. We have various strong educational institutions. Our seasons is good for tourism. Some of our weaknesses is our less friendly tax laws for retirees and businesses. Public transportation is a weakness. Land transportation and access to 95 is a weakness. Lack of formalized educational opportunities for trades and industrial industries. And so we went through the mission. Was this the mission question? We kind of answer them all together. So we have knowledge of programs. What question is that? I'm sorry. It's actually 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and so knowledge of the programs, projects in advance during the developmental stage. So what was discussed earlier is just having that proactive information. Feedback from the citizens. We need some type of citizen feedback loop where we can capture the feedback from the citizens and then, you know, assimilate it throughout, you know, the chain stakeholders and to our legislators. Opportunities to meet elected officials. Consistent community engagement by CAC members. So what does that look like? I think that's something that we're working on now. 5, we want to be meaningful contributors. And 6, what does it look like? Success looks like, it looks like meeting the mission, exceeding stakeholder expectations, and transparency. Sorry, I went fast. Any questions?
Thank y'all so much. That's really wonderful. All right, we have our last group.
Okay, our strengths, we had a lot of similarities with everyone else. We had outdoor recreation, military, history, our waterways, museum, cost of living is lower than some areas. We have a good higher education, diverse industries, and we have open spaces. Weaknesses, for a regional weaknesses, we brand identity. We have crime. There's a weakness. We need more diverse industries outside of the DoD that's primary in the area. Lack of entertainment to appeal to multiple generations. A lack of multimodal transportation options, and a lack of a regional vision that the region can get behind, citizens can get behind, our leaders. Fulfilling our mission. As a CAC, we want more info to equip us to cultivate relationships with our grassroots communities and our leaders above and horizontally within our cities. Want to educate this group about emerging issues that are coming up, and we want a joint meeting with the PDC TPO so that we engage with that leadership group. More collaboration on prioritizing issues regionally, and we want to clarify. Many of us felt like we want personally to clarify our roles in this group as citizens, within the state, within Commonwealth Transportation Board, our local mayors, and just how all that works. Governance, I've never, I had a government class in high school or something in another state. So, so just some of that help would be helpful to me and some of us. Level involvement, we want to be more engaged with like the Commonwealth Transportation Board and other relevant boards that are set up throughout the state of Virginia. Again, that we had the joint meeting with our PDC TPO, the people actually vote on what happens. And one of the questions said about ongoing projects. We said, yeah, ongoing projects are important, but sometimes that ship has sailed. We want to know about future projects and future possibilities as well, because we feel like we can make a bigger impact in the future, maybe. Briefed on matters that are going to be up for action by the PDC TPO ahead of their vote, ahead of time. When there's a public process being run by the region, like there was last year for the regional trails plan, this group should be intimately engaged and knowledgeable about that. Not, yeah, it's put out to the public, but then our leaders vote on it. And maybe I wasn't a member of the group, so I'm not going to speak for it, but I'm just saying those types of things, this group needs to definitely be engaged ahead of time. And maybe there's so many of those things we can engage in all of them, but maybe we help decide which ones we want to be engaged in, right? Let's see, number 5, CAC tenure and accomplishments. One of the things, so we went around to each person and said, what do we want to accomplish? Myself, I've been involved in regional trail planning for a while, and so that's one of my goals, is I want our regional trails plan built. Not on paper like it's been for decades. I want it to start being built. And I also want to improve all modes of our regional transportation system. And then other people brought up they want, and I agree, be educated on regional concerns, build stronger relationships within their city leadership and regional leadership. Different people had. As far as a successful CAC, we want to be informed and involved. And for a moment that just stood, and we just kind of appreciated that message, as simple as it is. We want to build trust at grassroots and leaders above and regionally. We recognize within our cities we don't always have trust, but within our citizens it should be easier to build trust. We want to advocate for regional cooperation. I believe people in our group believe that 95% of our citizens or more want regional cooperation, but our leaders struggle to give us that. More diverse membership. And we started to talk about what those things were. We want different ages, different skill sets. We kind of put our limit on certain sports teams. We said no Cowboys fans. So, that was, sorry if, there's rules here, I guess, but seriously, we want to have a fun. We want to be a fun group. Our table was a ton of fun. I thank our leader for setting the tone, and she also mentioned better lunches. So I'm gonna give that up. I like the lunches are fine. I appreciate the lunches. Thank you, but I'll always take better. But have fun. We can have fun. This is really serious stuff. But as a group, let's learn to be friends together and have fun.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you all so much. I love the just the camaraderie that I sensed in the room as I walked around. This is when I think of the CAC, I see a group of community members who are coming together, collaborating, and then helping to make the region better. And that's what I started to see today, and it felt really good to walk through the room. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mark. I'll be taking all of your notes, and I'll be compiling them into the minutes. Again, the information I presented you with earlier for your consideration, and we'll continue this process as we look at what is the CAC going to become. I did hear that it would be helpful for you to have some additional information. I'll be looking to provide you with that. And then I'll also be looking to try and get a representative here from maybe one of the other groups who can also give you some insights. I think if I heard correctly that there was some concerns about implementation and logistically what that would look like, and then assurance that you would still have the same weight and voice that you currently do. I want to assure you, I want you empowered. I want you to have ownership of this committee, of this group. It is yours. And I want to be a resource and support to you. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, sir. This is one of my slacker meetings. I got to put the load right on you. It works. I even got to eat my sandwich. So that brings us to our next meeting, which will be Thursday, August 10th. I will not be with you. That falls toward the end of my summer vacation, and I will be away. Unfortunately, because of the bylaws prohibition against doing so, I can't even join you virtually. So Godspeed. Old and new business. Nobody had any additions to the agenda. Any late entries? Okay.
Sorry, I believe Greg.
Oh,
Good question. We had a PDC work program was presented last PDC meeting. We had a video clip on that. Was this group, could they see that?
They have not. I can share it with them.
Yeah, I was.
You might need to. I just want them to hear you.
I didn't know if you wanted to pull it up now and just show it, or if you wanted to share it with them, but I should have mentioned this before. I just thought of it now. In terms of what the PDC does, there's like a 1 minute and 30-second video clip. If you wanted to play that, that might be useful, or I'll leave that to you.
is that the
We can,
the sentiment of the group? Like to hold that over? Okay. So as Mayor Holly used to say in Portsmouth, I serve at your pleasure. So we'll hold it over. So adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second, all in favor?
Pardon me, who was the second? Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for coming today. Enjoyed working with you.